probably going to love this. Is it cheaper to buy like a KRE engine in Australia, or is it better to search for an engine overseas? In your opinion?
That's hard to say. I actually, I was thinking about that on the way down here. Is like I actually spoke to our engine builder, Adrian Ma, about a new engine we've got coming.
He's a good peddler too. In his own right.
Mate, he was a weapon, absolute weapon, and a weapon of an engine builder too. So basically, I know what we're paying for a motor out of the States that he's assembling.
Yep.
And I was only thinking that I haven't checked what KRE's prices are for a new motor these days, but I know, and my old man's probably going to kill me for saying it, but I know that a new motor for us at the moment, and we're getting a rider out of America, which is what Kyle Larson uses. It's what Jamie Veal's using in Australia. So they tend to be the Duck's Guts motor at the moment.
So a rider's, so there's different engine, are they engine builders?
Builders, yes.
Yeah, so a rider's a good motor that the front guys would use.
So the hard thing is KRE can build your motor with all the same gear that Rider will build your motor, same head, same crank, same.
Yeah. So an Australian's building this motor, and the going.
And the difference might be in camshaft or injection, stuff like that. So basically, KRE can build you a 900 horsepower motor. Rider claims 920 to 930.
Yeah.
We have a one-way motor that should be around about the 932, which is the one that Adrian Ma's assembling. So basically, everybody can get the same parts from All Pro heads or Sonny Bryant cranks or Donovan blocks and stuff like that. So everybody can get the same parts and build it, but there's little tweaks here and there that the different engine builders have or do, and that's where the difference is.
There's also them now that you're seeing with the Rizal arriving and all that, how they got Toyota, Chevy, and Ford.
Yeah, that's starting to get interesting.
Is that the differences as well in the motors, or do you have to make a certain motor? I mean, you obviously haven't driven all those type of...
No, haven't been fortunate enough.
Yeah, because you're struggling to get a spare motor yourself.
Oh, mate, we'll get to that too. Yeah. That's another shit fight in itself. So differences are basically in the engine builders and how they assemble a motor and how they configure a motor, but the parts are very similar throughout the whole field. But yeah, basically, so I know the rider's costing between $100,000 to $110,000 depending on how you option it, brand new.
Yep.
And the One Way Technologies motor by Adrian Ma is a similar thing. I'm not sure what KRE is at the moment.
Yep.
Couldn't say for sure. But is it better to be with KRE or Rider or whoever? That's just up to personal preference, because as far as sprint cars go, 900 horsepower is probably too much horsepower for quarter mile tracks that we run on.
Yeah.
It's more about how they accelerate, how they throttle up is the terminology we use.
Yeah.
Because obviously a sprint car is driven with wheel spin basically 24/7.
But with Eastern Creek, because as we were speaking about outside, Parramatta's a huge track and Warrnambool's a huge track. You basically, I guess Eastern Creek, because it's just a short track, there's more wheel spin, is that? And that's why you're driving on like an angle, like you see in the photos?
It's hard. So I think as far as length around the pole line, it's the same size as Parramatta, but it's a very different shape. So Parramatta was probably more longer straightaways but tighter corners.
Yep.
Whereas Eastern Creek's almost a circle. There's not much straightaway but really wide corners.
Yep.
So we're actually punishing motors harder at Eastern Creek than we would have been at Parramatta.
Yep.
Even though Parramatta had longer straights, but Eastern Creek you tend to be on the wheel spin constantly, basically constantly in the circle, turning. And I think our the very minimal laps I've done there, our rev range, like our low rev on our best lap was like 7,200 RPM.
Yeah.
And our high rev was 92.
Yeah.
So we're sitting within it, just constantly up in the rev range, never really coming off it.
What I found when Brooke was interesting there was, because it was such a new track at Eastern Creek, each one was going faster at the start, so you would get like the lap record. And then the next one would go, and you're like,
I don't think I ever did, but the lap record was constantly tumbling. Yeah,
you'd be like, you're like 33 seconds of fame. You're like, yes. Oh, fuck.
And then out comes Jamie Veal. No, it's it'd be interesting to see how Eastern Creek develops as a track, because I think, without shitting on anybody, because obviously they're working hard at it, but there's plenty of room for improvement there.
Yeah,
to be brutally honest,
I think that track is building character. Obviously,
there's potential there. Yeah, don't get me wrong, but I actually took a few photos at the last meeting when I was walking away, and people were talking about how the track had widened up nicely.
Yeah,
I was walking up the main straight and took a picture back towards turn 1 and 2, where the cushion was, where the color change in the track was. We still had 3 or 4 meters of track width that is usable there.
Yeah,
and we're yet to use it yet.
Wow.
Like that place, if you get obviously we run down the fence on straightaways and stuff, but as far as actually running the wall in the corners, like if that track can ever get shaped properly,
So
in the
you
sense
can-
that you can get near the wall, that track will be so different and so much faster. You won't know it. It'll be a
Wow.
completely different track. So
So
That's what we saw last time when we were there. Because remember we were seeing like the Dumsies going up into that bit, but it was all just like torn up. So
Yeah,
they were trying
yeah.
to miss it and then come back in.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
said to Dan, you're missing so much track. That's what we were looking at. that
Yeah.
was
By the way,
missing.
Brooke was
Yeah.
pointing this out to me. So there you go. That's how much she's loving the
more of
sport.
a
right
racer than you.
I'm like, what? We're missing this, Dan. What is this?
So exactly like you saw, we want that to push further and
Yeah.
further up to the wall. Like if you do ever go to, have you ever been to Warrnambool?
No, we're planning to go next year.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, that's what I'm dying for.
When Warrnambool's right, awesome.
Do you reckon
Yeah.
we could get a podcast there going? Like if we actually had the funding to, like, the Fan Appreciation Day? Is that a
Yeah.
good idea?
Mate, Warrnambool's just a different breed of people in a good way.
Yeah.
In a good way. I love you, Warrnambool. But they just live and breathe sprint cars, man. I've
Yeah.
never
Yeah.
seen crowds like it for Speedway in Australia. Like, I think they average about probably between 8 and 11,000 people there on the final night. Like,
Wow.
Wow.
like as far as calling it Sun Gold Stadium, it is like a stadium. It's like a football atmosphere. They're vocal, they cheer, they boo.
Wow.
It's just awesome, like to actually hear an enthusiastic crowd like that, and to have it every year upon year is awesome. And the Fan Appreciation Day, it's the same. Like we went last year, and on the Fan Appreciation Day, we were just servicing our car. We'd raced the night before.
Yeah. You didn't have any merchandise or anything?
No merchandise. But we were parked next to the Dumsneys.
So you're feeling it, but you're not being able to
felt
sell
important.
anything.
It wasn't selling shit. But, no, so obviously Max grew up close to Warrnambool, so he's a hometown hero there. And as far as I'm concerned, the king of Australian sprint cars.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
So, yeah, when you park up next to the Dumsneys on the Fan Appreciation Day, man, there's hundreds of people around them all day long. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And I couldn't tell you how many people there, all together, but it'd be thousands, I'd say.
Yeah.
So, yeah, podcast on the Fan Appreciation Day would be sick. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, sweet.
Put that on the bucket list. Yeah. Put Warrnambool on the bucket list, though. Like, that track when it's right is awesome. When you can run a foot off the wall the whole way around the track, like, that is awesome. I would hope Eastern Creek gets to a stage like that, because I think Parramatta was about 18 metres wide from what I've heard in the corners. Eastern Creek's 22 metres wide.
Yeah.
There's another 4 metres of racing track to be used there.
Yeah.
But right now, in my opinion, the problem is that you'll watch the banking go up the track about 2/3 of the track on a consistent bank.
Yep.
And then it flattens off for the last 3 or 4 metres, which is the 3 or 4 metres we don't use, because it's nothing like having the track holding you there and then getting over this lump in the track, and it's like somebody throwing an anchor to the fence and trying to drag you in there.
Is that what's causing for the people, the new fans coming in, that weird awkward tumble when you have an accident? Do you know what I mean? When they go, ooh, and they just then they bang, they flip. Do you know what I mean? Is that why? Because it's going up to that weird.
No, I wouldn't say that. It's more like if you ever see a car go screaming in to turn 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it looks like he just belts the fence out of nowhere. Like he completely misjudged the corner. You think, oh, that was silly. He just drove straight at the fence. Yeah, that's probably not the driver's fault much at all. That's as far as banking holding you, it's how do I explain it? It's like being in a cart and then somebody just throwing a bucket of water on the corner as you're halfway through it.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, being in the dry and just somebody coming with a 20-litre bucket of water and throwing it on the track
Wow.
halfway through the corner. So it's a really unnerving feeling to be stuck in a corner
Yeah.
and then have the car just go free and want to spin out and slide up into the fence. It's a really unnerving feeling.
Yeah.
And I think you can see it in the way everybody's racing there, because, like I said, we're not near the fence.
Yeah.
And I can't wait for the track to get that way, because I think it will eventually.
Yeah.
But we're not there yet.
Before Parramatta shut, I was reading an old Speed Cafe article. I think did you win the night? Oh, it was
Haven't won anything in a sprint car. Won lots in a wingless sprint car.
okay.
So that was my transition.
I was going to ask wingless stuff, but I was thinking you had like a highlight that made Speed Cafe a few years ago. Did you poll it?
2018 it was.
2018.
Yeah, quite possibly. I think we just went on, as far as my results went, as a bit of a tear. We sort of had a lot of top 5 finishes. I think we had 2 podiums in the space of probably a month or two. So I think it was kind of,
There was one
probably
year,
as far as the speedway community was concerned, a bit of a breakout season.
Yeah.
Still never managed to win a fucking race there, but
You did really well.
There's one video that I love. It's I think it's the George Tatnall Memorial. There was me, Sammy, and Robbie Farr went at it for sort of the last 7 or 8 laps.
Yeah.
I lost count of how many times we all changed the lead, but it was probably one of the funnest races I've ever had in a sprint car, even though I ended up third out of that
Yeah.
sort of battle. I think we hit the lead like 5 laps to go.
Mm.
I thought, oh, this might be it.
Yeah.
So I thought, just calm down, don't do anything stupid. And I think there was like a foot high cushion at Parramatta and just launched off the track.
Actually,
like, come on, boys, come back through, and then try it again.
Yeah.
But yeah, plenty of good times at Parramatta. I miss that place. I think everybody does as far as Speedway fans are concerned, because I think that was the best track in the country by far.
It also had this, I mean, obviously it was shutting down, but it also had that nostalgic feeling. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially in Sydney.
Yeah.
Because in Melbourne, even in Queensland, I guess Queensland has Archerfield. Do they have Archerfield? Is that their closest one? Or is it Toowoomba?
Archerfield's closest to Brisbane.
Yeah.
And Toowoomba is Toowoomba.
Yeah.
So yeah, Archerfield's been around a long time too. So it probably matches Parramatta for nostalgia.
Yeah.
But yeah, Parramatta's cool. You're starting to watch a city be built around a speedway. Like
That's what I was basically getting to. Yeah.
It's like Todd Road in the carts. Like when
Yeah.
you go up the top of the Todd Road track in Melbourne and see all the skyscrapers in the background. Like it's it's a bit surreal, but probably inevitable. You know, as sad as it is to say, business is business, and I'm sure that land will be much more valuable as commercial property one day once the metro's built and all that. So yeah, probably inevitable. Thankful that we've got somewhere else to race.
Yeah.
Do I think it's as good as Parramatta? Not yet.
Yeah.
Can it get as good as Parramatta? Yeah, absolutely. So time will tell.
Yeah. How did you? I've got to ask about a specific race about Parramatta where they had the 50. I think it was a 50 lapper, the one that the endurance race that they had one night.
Yep.
I've got to ask about how you controlled your tyre wear through those races, because I remember going years ago to you guys in the pits, and basically your tyres would be blistered and like basically all the rubber would be on the track.
Yeah.
And you'd basically come with a bald tyre.
Yes.
How do you manage all that horsepower without basically popping the tyre? Do you know what I mean? Because those races you'd have to stop for fuel, but you'd leave the tyres on. Or
you're not allowed to change a tyre. Or you could, but it was rear of field.
Yeah.
And they went like rear of field even for the cars that were lapped, like you went a lap down type of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was broken into 2 25-lap races. So basically with sprint cars, we have, depending on the brand of tyre you go with, so Hoosier, you have a WAV compound, or you can go harder. Not many people do. We run American Racer tyres, so you've got a slightly softer compound, which is called an SD38.
Yep.
Which we usually run for qualifying and heat races and stuff. Probably even a B main if you were to run it.
Yep.
As you come to feature races, you go to a slightly harder compound, which would be an MC2, it's called. And that's how we usually got through feature races. Do you have to conserve? Yeah, absolutely. You have to drive it conservatively. But with sprint cars, and again, a bit unique about sprint cars, we're so overpowered for what the tyres can do at the end of the night. So, and I think KRE has done a video on this. He goes, sprint car guys are pains in the ass, basically, because we want 950 horsepower at the start of the night, but I want 750 at the end of the night. So you can do things to a motor to kill some horsepower.
Yeah.
So
do you guys like yourself play with motors for like a longer race? Obviously it's not happening at Eastern Creek because they're still doing 30 lap.
Yeah, or even in a 30-lap feature, if it goes really slick, like if you were qualifying at an 11-second lap and all of a sudden the feature race times are going to be like 14, 15-second laps, people will kill horsepower out of a motor anyway just to make it more drivable.
And you'll do that in the pits?
Yes, so you'll see, the slang terminology is the ram tubes, so out of your injection, the big trumpets.
Yep.
So we have like 2.9-inch injection per cylinder, so you've got 2.9-inch trumpets. They have inserts that reduce that intake to, I think, 2.5 inches even, or 2 and whatever.
Yep.
So you can take a shitload of air out of the motor. You can put a smaller set of exhausts or mufflers on it, extractors on it to kill a bit of air coming out of the motor. So, and you can play a bit with fuel. You can sort of flood the motor with fuel. So yeah, there is, don't hold me to it because we don't usually mess with it that much. But I think you can sort of get from about 900 and take about 70 or 80 horsepower out of a motor pretty easily if you needed to. So as far as conserving for a 50-lap race goes, yeah, you'd probably kill horsepower out of a motor.
Does that stuff you up at the start of the race though for that race? Or not really? Or does it just play, does it kick in towards the end of that race? Do you know what I mean?
I guess it depends on how the driver likes to drive a car.
Yeah.
So me personally, I don't usually like killing horsepower, especially when we're talking days at Parramatta when you had a foot-high cushion because you needed to have wheel spin all the time. That's the only way to get around a cushion without trying to flip the car over. So every time we took horsepower out of my motor, I hated it because I couldn't light the tyre up very easily and get out of these ruts or sticky situations.
Would that be your crew chief's choice or your choice as the driver?
Depends on what team. So for me, we're probably a bit unique in the sense that there's myself, my father, and my uncle.
Yep.
So we basically run it as all opinions are equal in that regard.
Okay. So your dad or your uncle don't override you. Do they actually leave a driver choice?
So we go sort of 2v1.
Yep.
So we have 3 opinions. If there's 2 people that are of the same opinion, then we do that. Or if 3 people have the same opinion, even better. But usually, and it kind of works well, if you've got 3 heads, there's always going to be 2v1 or all in for the same opinion. So it's kind of,
Because when you hit your peak, like obviously you've had a bit of bad luck now with not having a motor and racing less, and there's not much. There's been a few rainouts in Eastern Creek, but when you hit that peak, like as you said, your golden, we'll call it your golden era in 2017, 18, right? When you're on fire,
don't flatter me.
you're on, when you're on fire, you have this. It's like you kind of, in my opinion, from watching you for years, Warren Ferguson and those guys and Sammy Walsh, you have the Parramatta posse have that certain style of driving, especially around that track. But are you still trying to find your groove to be that quick as opposed to move that style of driving to Eastern Creek? Do
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Oh, man, I feel like a fish out of water there.
Yeah.
Which is only making the fact that I'm sitting out now harder and harder. So, obviously, the last time, so pre-COVID, or just as COVID was starting, my daughter was born on the last night that they raced at Parramatta.
Wow.
So I was in the hospital watching the racing with baby girl in my arm. Then the track shut, never to be opened. So I didn't even get to do the last race meeting there. Obviously,
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah, so obviously we had 2 years of rubbish and bullshit that we never got to race with. Mind you, whilst Queensland basically kept racing for the most part, like Archerfield kept racing, Toowoomba kept racing. So a lot of the Queensland guys have had laps and laps on laps over the past 3 years that none of us got. So yeah, we had the 2 years of COVID, no Parramatta, waiting for Eastern Creek to get built, which obviously ran over on time.
Yep.
And then it seemed like all it's done is rain there. So I feel like I was only talking to my mate Brendan Scorgie about this the other day.
Yep.
I reckon I've lucky to have done a couple of 100 laps in 3 years.
Yeah, right.
And he said I've done 400 this season.
And where's he, Queensland?
No, Brendan lives Yass.
Okay.
Yeah,
so, right. I thought he was a Queenslander for some reason.
No, he lives in Yass, sort of down Jackson Delamont way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's killing me watching people get hundreds of laps just in a season.
Yeah.
And I feel like since my daughter's been born, I haven't done a full season of racing at all.
Yeah.
So
do you get the same satisfaction though being a father to race in a car? Like, do you still get that
absolutely.
wholesome feeling? Do you know what I mean?
100%. I had a very, very intelligent guy, a crew chief of mine in the past, Bill Roberts, say to me once, he go, when my wife was pregnant, he said, mate, once this happens, this racing shit means nothing.
Yeah.
And I won't go as far as saying it means nothing. It means nothing in comparison to your children. Like there's no better feeling when your kid runs up to you, gives you a cuddle or something like that. Or when you come home, my kids sit there bashing on the door like, Dad's home. Like, it's the best feeling in the world. But, you know, so racing's still everything to me.
Yeah.
Until you compare it to your children, then it's nothing.
Yeah.
But so that maybe changes people, but yeah, I still think I'd like to be competitive. I'd like to race a sprint car as long as I can. Like I watched Max Dumpney still be competitive at like 45 years old, with all due respect. But I was like, this is awesome. Like I want to be doing that. So.